Okay, so this is for section 7.3b, using trig to find missing angles. So just a refresher, everyone needs their calculator out to do this. So today we're going to be using the inverse, sine, cosine, and tangent. These buttons are usually right above your regular sine, cosine, tangent. To get to them, you have to hit second or shift. Some calculators, if you have the trig button that you have to hit, you just have to keep scrolling. They're further on the list. Sometimes, depending on how fancy your calculator is, it might say arc sine. That's the same thing as sine inverse with the little -1. So these are the buttons you're going to be using today. So when I talk about them, that's how you get to them. So our learning goal, I can use sine, cosine, and tangent to solve for missing measures in a right triangle. So let's just do some prior knowledge check. Just a refresher on the last section. 53 is our reference angle. So across from your reference angle is always your opposite side. Across from your right angle is your hypotenuse. And the last side that's like touching your angle is your adjacent. But since there's no measurements there, I'm not even going to write that down. So this is a sine problem because it's O and H. So we're going to do sine of 53 equals x over 26, and then solve for x. So multiply both sides by 26. The 26 cancel, so then we have to just have x is equal to 26 times sine of 53. Write that in your calculator. So you get 20.76, so I'm going to do 20.8. Now, during this notes video, you should be taking your calculator and typing in this answers with me at the same time. That way you can verify you're getting the same thing as me. That way on your homework, you know you're doing it correctly. Number 2, 78 is our reference angle, so across from 78 is our opposite. Across from our right angle is hypotenuse, but we don't need that, so I'm not going to write it down. And that last side is adjacent. Opposite and adjacent, that's TOA. So tangent. So tangent of 78 is equal to x over 9. Solve for x. Multiply both sides by 9. Those 9's cancel, leaving us x equal to 9 tangent of 78, and then type that in your calculator. I get 42.34, so just leave it as 42.3. Number 3, 22 is our reference angle. Across from that angle is our opposite, but we don't have an opposite. Across from our right angle is hypotenuse, and the last side is your adjacent. So this is adjacent hypotenuse, so cosine. Cosine of 22 is equal to 14 over x. Now, remember what I said? You can put this over 1 and cross multiply. So we get x cosine 22 is equal to 14. Divide by cosine 22. Those cosines cancel, so we now have x is equal to 14 divided by cosine 22. Type that in your calculator. I get 15.09, so 15.1. Number 4. 39 is the reference angle. Across from that is 52, so that's your opposite. This other side that's touching 39 is your adjacent. So this is TOA, another tangent problem. So tangent of 39 is equal to 52 over x. Now I've shown you where you can cross multiply, but if you notice, there's kind of a pattern. What happens is your x and your cosine just ended up trading place. In this case, your x and your tangent just kind of end up trading place. So you can go through the process of cross multiplying, whatever, but if you want to use the pattern, we know that these guys are just going to trade place. So x is equal to 52 divided by tangent of 39. And this only happens when your x is on the bottom of your fraction. So it's a good little trick to use, and it makes your solving go a lot faster. So we get x is 64.2. So that was just our prior knowledge check, kind of a refresher on finding missing side lengths. Now we are going to find the missing angle measures. So if you know the sine, cosine, tangent ratio of an angle, you can use the inverse function to find the measure of that angle. So I'm going to kind of show you why this works and where it comes from. So if we are solving still the same way as we were doing before, so cross from your x is your reference angle, 15 is your opposite, cross from your right angle is your hypotenuse. So this is a sine problem. So sine of x is equal to 15 over 24. Actually, move it over, give yourself a little bit of space. Now, think about what we do in math when we solve equations. If we have addition, the opposite is subtraction. If we have division, the opposite is multiplication. If we have squaring, the opposite is square rooting. So if we were solving this problem and we want to get x by itself, well, sine has an opposite. It's called an inverse. So all of these operations I just listed were inverses of each other. So addition and subtraction are inverse. Addition and subtraction are inverse. Division and multiplication are inverse. Squaring, square rooting are inverses. So sine has its own inverse, and we call that inverse sine. And we can apply that on our problem. This is inverse sine. That's how that's read. So when we apply the inverse, it actually cancels out the sine, leaving us with just an x. But on the other side, we have x is equal to sine inverse 15 divided by 24. So in your calculator, you're going to hit second, sine inverse, and then you're going to do 15 divided by 24. Or on this side, you'll hit shift, the sine button, that gets you the sine inverse. And on this calculator, you can actually use the fraction button if you want, 15 on the top, 24 on the bottom. Or you can just do 15 divided by 24. So when we type this in, make sure your calculator's in degree mode. I showed you that in the last video. It has that little DEG at the top. So we get x is equal to 38.68, so that's a 38.7. And that's a degree. That's what that angle measure is. Okay, number 2. Here's our reference angle. That makes 11 your hypotenuse, 8 your adjacent. There is no opposite in this one. So that is cosine. So cosine of x equals 8 over 11. Now again, remember I showed you can do the inverse to both sides, and that cancels out that cosine, leaving us with x by itself equal to the cosine inverse of 8 divided by 11. So when we type that in, I get 43.3 degrees. Number 3. We have 20 as our opposite, 37 is our adjacent, so that is tangent. So tangent of x equals 20 over 37. Now you can do inverse tangent. Inverse tangent and our tangent cancel each other out, so we get x is equal to the inverse tangent of 20 divided by 37. So we get 28.39, so 28.4 degrees. Okay, number 4. So here's our reference angle. 18 is our adjacent, 23 is our hypotenuse. So that is cosine. So cosine of x is equal to 18 over 23. Now remember, since x is in your cosine, you have to do the inverse. So if we want, we can go just as straight to saying x equals the cosine inverse of 18 over 23. And then type that in your calculator. So you have 38.49, so it's 38.5. Number 5, 40 is our opposite. 41 is our adjacent. So we have sine of x equals 40 over 41. That means we have to use inverse sine of 40 over 41. So we get 77.31, so 77.3 degrees. Make sure you're putting degrees on. See, I forgot my last one. Okay, number 6. X is your reference angle, so 7 is your opposite, 5 is your adjacent. That is TOA, so tangent of x equals 7 over 5. So then we'll use inverse tangent. So you get x is 54.46, so 54.5 degrees. Okay, last one. Jaden is flying a kite and lets out 275 feet of string. So that's important information, so we underline that. If the kite is 150 feet above the ground, and assuming the string is straight, what angle does the string make with the ground? So there's our question. And then here's our important information. So let's draw a picture to represent that. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. So up here is the kite. Down here is Jaden standing. The kite is 150 feet above the ground. And let's just say Jaden is sitting on the ground. So this is our x. And the string is 275 feet. So there is our problem. And the kite with the ground makes a right angle. So this is our opposite. 150 is opposite. Across from your right angle is hypotenuse. So this is a sine. Sine of x equals 150 over 275. So x equals sine inverse of 150 over 275. Enter that in your calculator. So we get 33.05, so 33.1 degrees. That's what this angle measure is right here.